All right, Convention of States, Texas. We are here today to chat with Nate Sheets, who is running for AG Commissioner here in Texas. It's a statewide position, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we're going to get to some questions from our COS LARA coalition. LARA is Livestock Agriculture Rural Affairs Coalition, so they love our land and they love animals, and so they've got some good questions for Nate. And so, Nate, if you could just go ahead and start and introduce yourself for us, please.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me today. And just so everybody's clear, it's the other AG race, the small AG. So for Ag Commissioner. And so I have been in Texas. I'm fifth generation Texan, grew up down in Hayes County and went to Hayes High School and went to college down in Southwest Texas and came up to Dallas in the mid 90s after I got out of college. And just by happenstance, bought a beehive as a hobby that resulted in turning into the largest honey company in the United States, Nature Nates. And so have a bit of experience being a small producer all the way to a large producer. But I've been in agriculture, from having a cow-calf operation out in West Texas. We have a ranch, and we also do cutting horses as well, and buy them as 1-year-olds and train them and sell them as 2-year-olds. But, my experience and background is, being a kind of an entrepreneur. We've started a lot of different businesses, and I understand all the challenges it is just in business by itself, but also in agriculture. When you have animals or crops that are relying upon nature, a lot of things that are outside of your control. And just nature in itself is a very hard part to manage. But now you go layer on, economic pressures from, interest rates all the way to global pressures of commodity pricing. And it really creates a challenging environment for all producers in the United States and actually in Texas. And so a friend of mine, Rick Santorum, back in January, we were both up in Washington, D.C., and I had actually left being the CEO of Nature Nates in November of last year. And I was telling him that I'd spent 12 years in full-time Christian ministry and that I spent 12 years doing the honey business full-time. And I was trying to figure out what the next 12 years were going to look like for my life and really trying to find out what the Lord had. And Rick, kind of out of the blue, said, if you really want to make an impact in people's lives, like what you did in the honey business by testing everything and really cleaning it up and helping to grow it, he said, you should go be the ag commissioner in Texas, which was kind of out of the blue. And so I did have some involvement with the ag commissioner. I've been one of his largest donors, and having been in ag in Texas, obviously that made sense. So long story short, came back, looked at the job description of what it entailed. And having been a donor to SID, I was actually quite surprised by what I saw were the responsibilities of the ag commissioner being able to really make an impact in the lives of not just farmers and ranchers, but all Texans, and especially kids in school, 5.5 million kids that the ag commissioner has responsibility for feeding. And so I took Sid Miller out to lunch and asked if he had plans to run again. And he said that he was considering running for a different position. And so I, kind of casted this vision of helping farmers and ranchers be successful and also trying to help clean up the food that we all eat. 70% of all Americans suffer from one chronic disease or more related to foods that we eat. And so, and he said, well, I think you should run. And so I asked him if that was an endorsement, and he did say no. So he would tell you if he were on here, he'd say, well, I meant like if I didn't run, you should run. So anyway, so we launched out in May, and I'll tell you, it's just been an amazing experience. We have tremendous momentum all across the state. There's a lot of enthusiasm for the need to change in agriculture in Texas.
Well, great. So love everything that you're saying, and we love Rick Santorum. He's a super supporter of Convention of States. And so tell us how you got to know about Convention of States.
Well, actually, so I met Mark Meckler through being friends with Rick. Eventually, you're going to meet Mark, and then also Foster Freeze, and so we're all involved with Outriders, which is an organization that Foster had created, and really as a goal to bring people of different backgrounds together to really help cast a vision for making an impact in your community, especially around government and his faith. And so I met Mark, I think initially, yeah, the first time we were pheasant hunting up in North Dakota, and we were up there with Tucker Carlson. And so they started talking about the Convention of States and really about the need to utilize that as a platform to bring the states back and really trying to make a constitutional amendment to force the government to having a balanced budget and forcing us back to good fiscal policy, which to me makes absolute and total sense. And so Mark had called me after that and invited me to invest into the work that you guys do, which I was happy to do, and just had continued to obviously be friends with Rick and Mark along the way, and was actually just with both of them just a couple of months ago when we were fishing up in Alaska. So I appreciate the heart and the passion behind what you guys are trying to achieve.
Thank you very much.
We're trying to achieve.
Yes, thank you very much. We removed the expiration date this year, so we're super excited about that. And so we've got our state summit coming up in January and February, where we will be talking about our next steps. So I'm going to open it up. So if anybody has any questions, please raise your hands. Joanne raised her hand first.
Joanne's off. She beat everybody.
Yeah, I want to kick this off because I did reach out once Erica let me know that she was setting up this Zoom call and started making some phone calls to a part of my ag team, if you will. And so they were all excited, and I see they've jumped on and they have specific questions for you. So I am not going to burst their bubble or take them. But the first time I have actually met you and talked to you, it was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, at one of the last publicized SREC meetings in Texas.
The one in Corpus?
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
And I met you, and I think Mike Deffendahl also met you at that event. And as soon as we talked to you, both of us immediately got on text with Mark going, "Who is this guy? Do you know him?"
Because he's dropping your name.
He's dropping your name right and left, and he's mentioning Santorum and is like, who is this guy? And he came back with glowing recommendations. You need to support him. He's a great friend. He's a donor. And he was 100% behind you. So with that, just to let you know, you did not go unvetted from that first meeting.
Well, that's good. Got to remember that about speaking in public.
And then my only, and I'll wait, I want Richard and Henry Bonnart, if they're ready to really start asking questions, and I have one probably towards the end, so I'm gonna relinquish.
I like your shirt, Joanne, Activist.
Well, yes, yeah, and I got this at the Southern Family Farm and Ranchers Conference that was held in San Marcos earlier this year. Great experience, and we were allowed to set up a Convention of States booth, which, thanks to Mark Richter and a couple of other volunteers, we got a number of petitions signed, as well as a ton of interest, right, Mark?
Mike.
Ton of interest. Mike, I'm sorry, Mike.
Okay.
So.
I'll take Mark or Mike, either one.
Okay. I still have your stuff. We need to get together so I can give it back to you.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, it was a great time.
Good. All right, so Henry, Richard,
Yeah.
you want to jump off and start asking questions for us?
Okay. I'll start by explaining where we're coming from. We have a ranch out out west of San Antonio, about 60 miles from there. It's a small place, 250 acres. It's been in the family for a little over 100 years now. We raise cattle, and we're selling right now. We have to sell it by bulk, like by a half calf.
Sure.
And it's I guess you could say it's a cumbersome type deal to have to go through. People have to buy the whole half a calf, or they have to split it up themselves, find out somebody else to split a half if they want smaller portions or something. And what we're trying to do is get some legislation passed where we can sell these things, like box it up. We have it processed at a commercial processing plant. We can have it processed, and then we can sell like boxes, say, of 20 pounds or 50 pounds, something less than a whole or a half a calf and something. And it would be something similar to like what they do with the, what is it called? The Nebraska deal there. It's called, I can't think of it right now, but
Steaks, Omaha.
yeah, Omaha steaks. This
Yeah.
would be something similar like where you'd buy a box of beef like that. But right now you have to go through this process of having it,
USDA
um,
inspected.
yeah, USDA inspected and all that stuff, which to me, it's kind of ridiculous. We're not looking at selling it outside of the state. As long as we keep everything inside the state, I just don't think we should have USDA inspections on it and that. That's one of the things. Some of the other things that we're considering doing is possibly, like with doing, um, like eggs, and if you wanted to sell milk, from the cow, had milk cows and that, and you wanted to sell the raw milk and that, those are some things that they're doing it in other states. But right now uh, it's kind of I don't even think it's legal, but there's some people that are doing it. I know where there's places where they get raw milk and that, but anyways, there's some things that we're concerned with. It's small operations and it's custom type stuff. And wanting to find out what your take is on that kind of stuff. It's about like you with your honey. How you start
Yeah.
out with.
I was about to say, Henry, I got a little experience with something like this. I think the problem in agriculture is that we have too much government regulations and interference, and I do. I love the ability for people to have home-based businesses that they can easily, sell and utilize the home cottage laws. I think they increased up to maybe even $1 million this year just in terms of the revenue levels. And so they're trying to give people the ability to grow those businesses. But what they haven't looked at is, how people are growing those businesses. And so exactly what you said is exactly what I believe in. The challenge where we are today, we've lost last year in America, we lost 7% of all farmers. In Texas, since 2018, we've lost 17,000 farmers. Farmers in 1980 made 40 cents of every $1 of food that was sold. Today, 45 years later, they make 15 cents. So they make 60% less, than they did 45 years ago. So producers in Texas have a revenue issue. And if you're not a large scale farm, then these are the farms that are going out of business. They're part of the 7% that we lost last year. And I'll tell you, that's the lifeblood of a robust economy, to have small businesses that support the other businesses on top, because those small businesses today are the larger businesses tomorrow. And we need to help make it easier for that. And so part of my talk that I share all the time is that very thing of what can we do to help go from 15 cents to 20 to 25 to 30 to 35. And it's about creating opportunities for farmers and ranchers to sell their products direct to consumers or through retailers. And so the way we're going to do that is we're going to go and revamp the Go Texas program. I've been a Go Texas member for many years. I went on the site the other day, and it's filled with, women making tchotchke earrings out of healing crystals, and it's things that really don't pertain to agriculture in Texas. And so we're going to go and we're going to revamp the Go Texas program, and we're going to actually give it some impact to be able to help farmers and ranchers access more opportunities to sell. So I do have a little bit of experience working with retailers. So we'll go to retailers like H-E-B and Brookshire Brothers, in United Supermarkets, and we will create a more robust in-store section of Go Texas members and provide the opportunity for people to do self-distribution. It's called DSD, direct store distribution to where they can go put product on the shelf. Put a lot of honey on the shelf at 4 o'clock in the morning before I go to work. But it's not easy at the same time, because then you've got to find somebody to sign it. They got to check and make sure that the inventory is there. So there are ways that we need to really look at to make sure it's a viable way for people to be able to do it. So that's number one. Number two, we need to create a robust digital platform of that. So it doesn't matter if you live near a Brookshire's or an HEB. If you're out in the middle of West Texas, down near San Antonio, and out in the middle of nowhere, you're nowhere near a Walmart or an HEB, you need to be able to sell to customers, not just in Texas, but even across the United States. And so through creating essentially a Go Texas version of an Amazon that really focuses on products that connect producers to consumers, now we've actually given full access to full retail pricing, which is even going to get far beyond the 40 cents a pound that we experienced in 1980. But there's regulations that we have to go in, legislation that we need to go have work alongside of us to eliminate these barriers. What we can do from a regulatory statutory standpoint inside of TDA, we will do. But what we need to go and get passed through legislation. I was yesterday with 3 members of the Ag Committee and down in Houston and with Speaker Burrows. And we were talking about, I can't wait to start planning for what we do for the 2027 legislative session for agriculture. And I recently was endorsed by Senator Kevin Sparks out of West Texas.
Yeah.
And Kevin told me the other day, we were together, and he said he was asked by Lieutenant Governor to represent the ag bills for the Senate. And he went and asked his staff about how many times they interface with the TDA or Sid Miller, and they said 0. So we do not have a Texas Department of Agriculture today that's really thinking about ways to help grow producers and revenue, and to be able to make them more profitable so they can be there from a long-term perspective and get it to a place where young people can get into agriculture and want to get into agriculture. Because today, why would they want to do that when they watch their parents struggle or their grandparents struggle?
Yeah, so Henry and Richard are what we call the leaders of our Capitol Brigade at the Capitol when we have when legislative session is active. So we would love to form of policies that you would like to see passed, to consider them as something that we can also support.
Yeah, I've gone up and met with AFPI, America First Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. So Tate Bennett is the head of the AFPI Ag. And, AFPI is where Brooke Rollins was before she went to USDA. And so I met with them, and they, as well as Kevin Roberts at the Heritage Foundation, have said, hey, we want to help you, And so as we are transitioning from, really a campaigning mode and trying to ensure that we get the nomination, eventually we're going to move into this planning mode of really figuring out what we're going to be doing. Because I really want to address this in the same pace that Donald Trump did. When they went into office, they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they begin to implement. And we're going to do the same thing.
Awesome. Sounds good. Anything else, Henry? I know we talked about processing meat, right?
Yeah.
I'll talk about that too.
Well,
access to processing is tough. I mean, I was just with a processor up in Rockwall, and he was telling me about he's the largest customer of the processor, and the guy continues to raise prices, and it's almost $1.10 a pound, and that's on hanging, and so that makes it fairly challenging, to be competitive from a pricing perspective. And so I don't have the solution, but here's my idea, just in terms of the state needs to be proactive in creating processing facility or facilities to be able to give smaller producers access to get it done. No, I'm not a pro-government the pro-government being in there, because the government's not the solution. Free market and private sector is a solution. But we're also all driven by profit. And so if we have it as a, private sector solution, then we're kind of back to the same place where we are today. And so trying to figure out, I mean, how could we have a processing facility where it's almost at cost? And, just to be able to create that service for any producer in Texas so they could be affordable in selling. So that's my thoughts.
So kind of an incubator for meat.
Well, our whole deal is we're really more like what you would consider a custom type of processing deal in that we sell the calves on the hoof to the individuals. In order to be legal about it, we have to sell it to them on the hoof. We have to give the names of the buyers of those halves of calf to the processor, and they process that according to how the one that's buying it wants it done. We don't get involved in how they process the calf or anything like that. All we do is we deliver the animal to the processing plant, and we give them the names of the people. This calf, half of it goes to this person, half of it goes to this person,
Okay.
and they give them the names and the phone numbers, and they contact them, and then they get all the actual information how they want their animal processed, or the steaks and ground meat and all that kind of stuff. So we're really basically a custom in more or less a custom business, not out there to sell just to any retailer or anything like that. But we would like to be able to get it to where we don't have to sell a half a calf to a person, where we can sell them and we can
Box
have them
beef.
processed in boxes
Yep.
of somebody wants steak, somebody wants all ground meat, or if they want a combination of stuff, we can fix up boxes of these things and sell it to them that way instead of selling it in a bulk deal. Because some people don't have the room for a freezer, or they don't have a freezer, or whatever whatever the situation is, and they maybe they don't have the money, maybe they can't afford to buy a half a calf all at one time. And so those are the things that we're trying to look at, being able to get good quality meat to more people without having to break the bank on them, so to speak.
Yeah. No, there are things about cattle that that I probably will never know. Alice isn't going to be calling me asking me about how to raise goats. A wheat farmer's not going to inquire what my thoughts are and how to grow wheat. But the thing that I do know is how to create market opportunities and access, for farmers to be able to generate revenue and figure out what all the barriers to entry are, for growth, and to get government out as much as we can to lower fees, to get, burdensome regulations, and to allow there to be a free market. And, in a sense, I know a lot of these things are done because there are health factors and safety standards that have to be considered. But, somewhat also buyer beware. I mean, we've been doing this for thousands of years. And my mom used to buy raw milk down in Plano when we were growing up, and she would go over into the east side of Plano with a brown bag full of cash, like she's doing a drug deal, and stand next to this guy and slide the brown bag over to him, and then he'd slide this other bag back over, and she would get her raw milk. And it doesn't have to be that complicated, but we need to help people to be able to be in business without government interference. So those are the things that I do know, and I'll surround myself with people that know the things that I don't know, and we can all figure it out together.
So Roanne Estevez, who's on the call, she's driving. She's just listening in. But she does have she wanted me to tell you that they have honey mead ale, that they, and then also she wanted to just let you know what we've just said before. They're drowning in regulations, but such is the wine business.
Well, I look forward to coming down and tasting your product. So,
So maybe,
um,
she's a very great hostess, and so maybe she can, host you sometime in the future,
that would
to
be
introduce you to folks here in Rockwall.
no, that would be great. And again, I mean, wine and honey are the two things that are most similar to each other, candidly. And every flower produces a different color, flavor profile. Every grape produces a different flavor and color profile. And so we just need to make it easier, whether you're selling box beef, selling wine, selling, mohair, we need to make it easier for people to be able to be in business.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, she would love to host you. So, anybody else have questions? We haven't heard from Richard.
Richard and I
Yep.
talked a long time yesterday. Richard, speak up.
Yes, I'm on. We're talking about cattle and ranching and stuff. I've got a question about this screw worms
Yes, sir.
from the flies, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. There's a difference between Sid Miller and Brooke Rollins. And I can remember when I was little, I think it was in 1960 or somewhere around that area, when we had screw worms here, and there were some boxes of sterile flies dropped out everywhere. And it didn't take long, and we started having more deer because got rid of the screw worms and that fly that was causing the screw worms. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
And you kind of broke up when you said that. What was, you said it was a box fly?
It was, well, they were boxes of flies that were dropped
Oh.
out, sterile flies that
Yeah.
were dropped out. And
Yeah.
when they hit the ground, they
Yeah.
busted open.
Yeah, so and you guys know this, but just in case, since it's going on to the internet. So the New World screwworm, it's been around for a long time. There've been infestations in the southeast part of the United States, all throughout Central America. They never totally eradicated it, but in 1971 and in the 60s they had outbreaks, and the way that they beat it is they sterilized male flies, screwworm flies, and that sterilization, the females mate once in their lifetime, and so if they can outpopulate the fertile males with the infertile males, then the females eventually just die out, and so the number that is 500 million flies a week to be released, and so there was a New World screwworm SIT facility in Mexico that they had used in the 70s, which they shuttered. They've had one down in the Darien Gap in Panama that has been putting out a couple hundred million a week, but they're started to have production issues. And then with all the mass migration, it's gotten all the way within, I think the latest detection was 70 miles to the border. So that's, historically that's where it is. So the solution, the Secretary of Agriculture last week put out a pretty terse response to what the Texas Department of Agriculture had been doing thus far, and expressed her frustration with the lack of seriousness or thoughtfulness in terms of what it was being done in the TDA, and they were wasting time and money. And so currently, the USDA has 8,000 traps scattered along the border of the United States and Mexico, and they have collected over 13,000 samples and yet to find one screw fly or New World screwworm fly in those traps. The FDA just approved Dectomax, which is some derivative of ivermectin that you can use to treat an animal. It's an injection after infestation, and it lasts for 21 days. I've even heard of salt blocks that will be having ivermectin in them that would help repel the flies. And so, ultimately, I think we need to get back to what we had originally, the SIT facilities. We've got the one down in South America that we're trying to get going. They're converting a fruit fly facility that is going to be able to provide 60 to 100 million, but that's about 10 months out. They're down in South Texas at an Air Force base. They're going to be able, by the end of this year, they're going to be able to put out, I think it was 50 million flies. USDA has approved a $750 million budget to build, but they have said that's going to be quite a while, 18 months. So we've got to have a more rapid response, which everybody is searching for. And yesterday, when I was with two of the members of the Ag Committee, um, uh, Don McCullough from Uvalde shared with me that they had met with a group that has a portable sterility facility that they could do 25 million flies a week, and that platform would cost about $9 million. And so he has given me that information. I'm going to reach out to him just so I can learn, because if we did that, for $90 million, you could do half the flies. And if we could do that with scale and do it quickly. So I think it's going to be a multi-prong attack, continuing. I mean, obviously the USDA is approaching this with a lot of seriousness, because the impact could be massive on the Texas economy, especially on the beef side of things. But diligence and inspections, they're going to continue to have the border closed, which really is wreaking havoc on the feedlot industry, as well as the four major packers, because they don't have the throughput. So it's going to be more challenging. The one good thing we do have is we have winter, and that will help kind of keep things at bay. But in the spring, when we get back to calving, where the ranchers are going to have to be aggressive in searching for new calves, and then treating like the umbilical cord areas with pyrethrum every 3 days, until that umbilical cord area is done, but also postponing, dehorning or castration, or just treating those areas. So, until we get those SIT facilities up and going, we're gonna have to be diligent of how we treat the animals. And it's going to be a little bit more work, but that's far better than having an outbreak that decimates the cattle industry.
Awesome. So Mike, you had your hand raised, and then Alish.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheets, for joining us. We appreciate it. My question is kind of on a national level, and I want you to look into your crystal ball and tell us what you see coming down the pike as far as tariffs go. I've read an article where soybeans are down, and wheat is down, corn is down, and I was just wondering how much that is going to affect the Texas farmers, and what you see as far as what we can do as a state to influence the president to maybe take a different path, or maybe increase the path that he's on.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that question. I will say that I think that Donald Trump has proven time and time again that he is like a three-dimensional chess player. And when people are thinking he's just ignorant of something, that he weighs in, and he inevitably outplays and checkmates pretty much every time. Even this latest shutdown, the Democrats felt like they had him cornered, only to give him the ability to go in and defund parts of the budget that he couldn't defund while they were in Congress previously, because they have the power of the purse. And so, but as it relates, to tariffs, we couldn't have a better representative to represent Texas farmers and ranchers than we do in the Washington, D.C. right now with Brooke Rollins. I mean, she is born, raised, and bred Texas, and she bleeds, that Texas star. And she's up there. She's fighting for all agriculture, but man, Texas is her motivation. And growing up down towards Stephenville herself, in the ag industry. So I don't think we need to worry about that, if we're on top of mind for them, because we are. And AFPI, which again is the policy group that's right across the street from the White House. I mean, they are at the White House every day, and Tate Bennett is there representing agriculture for all of Texas. There are a lot of ag producers that go up and meet with them, but Greg Sindelar, who's the president of AFPI, is also the president of TPPF, the Texas Public Policy Foundation here in Texas. And so we have this amazing connection between Texas and Washington, D.C. And I will tell you that Dan Hunter, who is the Farm Service agent, who was a former Texas Department of Agriculture Assistant Commissioner, was just hired after he was fired by the TDA. Brooke Rollins hired him to be over the FSA in Texas, and he was communicating with me last night and this morning early sent me a release that says that the USDA and the FSA is releasing $3 billion to help Texas farmers, and they're coming down now, and they're not waiting because the government's closed. And so they are, again, it's top of mind for them to really try to do it. Now, tariffs, I will say I'm not an economist, but I'll, being in the honey business, it was always frustrating when I could buy honey from Mexico, but I could never sell honey to Mexico. I could buy honey from Europe, I could never sell honey to Europe because they had, they had protective trade policies to protect their groups. And we've never had anybody really trying to look out for Texas producers or for all producers in the United States. And we've had a disproportionate tariff impact, for us. And really all that he has done, he has leveled the playing field. And when he's leveled the playing field, which I believe wholeheartedly is the exact right thing to do, we got, I just read yesterday, in July and in August, we got $30 billion of revenue in tariffs. Now, where does that get passed on? It's, about 30% it's going to get passed on to consumers. And so prices are going to go up. But I think he's going to utilize that to provide some level of relief, which he's indicated he plans to do for producers in the United States. And so I think at the end of the day, if we could get it to where producers didn't have to have subsidies to be in farming, no one wants a subsidy from the government. They want to be successful in business. And if we have that as a vision and trying to figure out how we can get there with a lot of smart people in the room, then that's the process. And we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix it overnight. And I'm not coming in as the ag commissioner and saying I've got the silver bullet by any stretch of the imagination. But I do know how to lead people. I do know how to ask a lot of questions. I knew how to get the right people in the room. And one of the reasons why I felt like doing this or pursuing this position could be impactful because of the bully pulpit that you have. And so to talk to people like yourselves and represent, the small producers, because again, and Brooke Rollins said this last week to me. She said, we have to deconsolidate agriculture. Deconsolidate. Because, if you think about it, everything big rolls up. When I was a small producer, it was hard. When I got big, different issues, but at least I made profit and then you can, grow and figure out how to go. So that's the natural growth. But what's happened because of us losing all the small producers, we wind up with large organizations, which are profit driven versus product driven. And that is the impact that we see in our health. And so if we can have more smaller producers that are thoughtful and mindful about how they produce food, because they're going to eat it and they're going to sell it to their neighbors, that's going to be the best thing for all of Texas, and the economies and the rural can come back to life.
Excellent. How about Alish? What do you got?
Okay, so I guess I'll give you a little story. It's just like regulations, just like government, are always best when they are the smallest as possible, right? So I know you can't have any, but I believe, just like I think it was Benjamin Franklin said, like a government is a necessary evil, right? So my point is, like to see what I guess your focus on reducing the regulation, and not just by a little bit, by mass amounts. And to give you an example, I had a friend who went some years back, went to a naval museum, and I believe it was the Liberty ships. They had some there, and there was a going and derusting and repainting the outside of the ships. And he went to them and asked them about, well, just for interest, how much paperwork and regulations need to go to actually do this job. And the guy handed him something like 250 pages. And he said, it's interesting. If you go into the museum and behind 3 glass things, there's big sheets and there's 3 papers. That was how to build 250 pages, how to paint it, right? So my point is that probably 95% of the regulations are totally detrimental to business and unnecessary, do not provide any health benefits or any other benefits other than padding individual people or the bureaucracy. So I guess my would be is how much of your focus will be on actually focusing on the deregulations, because I believe that's a huge point. And the Reagan and when the regulation, the economies went skyrocketed, right? Because people got allowed to do their own business. So I guess that would be my question: is just your focus or ideas about tackling this regulation night?
Yeah, I think that there, as it relates to the deregulation, that when we are going to come into the Texas Department of Agriculture, we're going to start to repair the things that have been destroyed. One, that's staff. That we've had over 130 staff leave the TDA since March because of the felon chief of staff that Sid had hired. But we're going to go in and we're going to review all regulations. We're going to figure out what fees were raised, and we're going to, I hate to just throw out the word doge it, because it's been doged, unfortunately, through poor leadership. But we're going to go and find what regulations are just, if it doesn't help a producer be more successful, then they need to give us a very good reason why to have it. But we're going to try to deregulate as much as we can and lower fees as much as we can, because there are other areas that we can put resources that are really going to help drive the success, and not just have regulations because we have people that need to go out and inspect things for the purpose of inspecting things.
Yeah.
And a great example of that is the organic program inside of TDA. And if you sold less than $250,000, there you should be able to just have an online process for that. But it's gotten to the point that the TDA would require to come out every year, no matter what size it was, walk around your property without any limitations, and just kind of bully their way in there. And we had like 13 inspectors. So, I mean, that small, very, very small case in point, to me as a business guy, that's ridiculous. That's not going to help. And so we're going to figure out what's going to help and what's going to help distract and make it impossible. And we're going to get rid of the things that don't help.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thinking, yeah, because I just I've been kind of looking at, and this is like across all industries, but I'm sure it's probably proportional, that businesses, small businesses, which are defined as, I think, less than 100 employees, right? They account for almost half of the revenue for the GDP and about 44% of the employment in the US. Right? So these little guys, like you're saying, it is the huge impact. It's not the big guys make the big difference. It's the little guys, because they are, they're the core of the lifeblood of America. So.
Yeah, again, I've been a small producer. I've been a large producer, and I want to help small producers become large producers, and I want to help large producers get even larger and do it right. Because again, all these things come back to impact people's health, and to me, it's a national security issue. And we've got 78% of kids unable to serve in the military because of their health, and we have to change it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nate, for meeting with us and giving us all the insights that you have. And we are looking forward to, I'm looking forward to voting for you on the ballot in March. And I'm sure the team is going to do some more research. But yep, Joanne has her hand raised too.
I just want him to tell us how we can follow him and maybe attend
Mm.
events.
And yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Joanne. You can go to natesheets.com. There's a sign up there for endorsements if you would like to endorse. There our social media is Nate Sheets for Texas on Twitter and or X and Facebook, Instagram, and then we are, as we were moving around the state, we're doing 38 True Texas Project town halls. I was in Tomball last night, and I'm speaking to TFRW in San Antonio this Saturday. And so we continue to post out. Are you going to be there?
I'll try. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
I speak at noon on Saturday. But listen, this isn't about me. This is about us. And I need everybody that's willing to put their shoulder to the load. The number is 1.2 million that we're trying to hit. We're trying to raise $5 million, and we are speaking north, south, east, and west. And so if you have opportunities where we can come in and speak to a group of people, the more the better, because it just uses money, more efficiently.
Mhm.
But I just was talking with Don McLaughlin about, coming down to Uvalde, and speaking down there. And he said, let me just start working on it. And so everyone knows we need change, but it's going to take all of us, to get him out, because he's beat 3 times before, beat people coming after him, but we're going to win this time.
All right. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much. We appreciate you, Nate. Have a
All right.
good rest
Thank you,
of the day.
guys. Great to
Thank you
speak
very
to you.
much.
Thank you very much. All right. Bye-bye.